Hi everyone and welcome back to another edition of Tarot to the Nines, and I've got a slightly different video for you today. We haven't quite reached the number 5 yet. I haven't filmed that video, but I'm going to be doing it very soon. I'm just keeping you fives waiting a little bit longer just to build a bit of suspense into the series. But what I wanted to do as an interim was a video, maybe a couple of videos, just giving you some additional information that you can use in relation to your birth card pairs. And you can do this whether I've already covered your number or not, as long as you know what your birth card numbers are. And you know that I favour a couple of different methods for calculating birth cards. Now, the first method, or the method that I generally do favour, is the one that's outlined in this book, Who Are You in the Tarot by Mary K. Greer, which was originally called Tarot Constellations. And the reason for that is that when you do the calculation, what your result is a constellation of cards, and we'll explain that in a second. That also is covered in this book by Angeles Arian, the Tarot Handbook, and in fact she originated the idea of tarot constellations through a very interesting process which involved her studying groups of cards and then having a phone call from Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, who was talking to her about his concept of constellations and noticing that certain symbols and certain mythical motifs, if you like, often appeared in a constellated form. And apparently the story goes she was on the phone to him and she was looking at the cards that she'd laid out and realised that that was true of tarot as well. So I think that story's in this book, so a very interesting originating story. And the reason I like this method, and it's one that I'm about to demonstrate to you, although we will do the other one later in this video, is that it gives a real richness. You get a group of cards, personality card, soul card, shadow card, and lessons and opportunities, challenges and opportunities cards as well. So you get a lot of cards to work with, and I think that is particularly rich and interesting. The other method is no less useful, but is a bit simpler, and that is a method that's favoured by the Tarot School, and that is outlined. The Tarot School is from Ruth Ann and Wald Amberstone, but the method is outlined in this book called Tarot, Birth Cards and You, Keys to Empowering Yourself by Bonnie K. of A. And again, very, very worth reading. If you're mathematically challenged and you don't want to have to do lots of more complicated computations, and you don't need to worry about, or you don't want to worry about soul cards, personality cards, shadow cards, challenges and opportunities, and you just want to have a couple of cards to deal with, then that method yields birth card pairs, and in one case 3 cards to work with. So in this video we're going to be doing spreads for both of those methods. The one that I generally favour is the Mary K. Greer one, but we'll do a spread for both. And I think probably the thing to do would be to start with a bit of a recap of how on earth to discover your birth cards. So first of all, I'm going to run through the method that Mary K. Greer offers and Angeles Arian, and then I'll show you a spread for this method, and then we'll go on to the Tarot School one. So first of all, how do you get your tarot constellations using the Mary K. Greer method? Well, the formula is pretty simple. You start with your birth date and you write it down as a sum like this: month, day and year, and then you'll come up with a 4-digit number as a result. And that 4-digit number you take and then you use Pythagorean reduction, or numerological reduction, which means writing out the numbers in a line and then adding them up in a line. So if your number is A, B, C, D, you add A plus B plus C plus D. And what you do is you keep doing that until you get to a result which is 22 or less. And the reason for it being 22 or less is that there are 22 cards, including the Fool, within the major arcana, and it's that you use to find your way into your tarot constellation. You might need to do that a couple of times until you get to the 22, but that's what you do. And sometimes you'll land on a double-digit number like 22 or 21, and then you reduce that, and I'll show you how in a second. Or you might land straight onto a single number, and that tells you what constellation you're in. So let me give you an example. So here is the birth date of Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton was born on the 19th of January 1946. So I've written down here for the month 01, for the date 19, and for the year 1946. With me so far? And then you use good old-fashioned long addition or whatever they call it. You remember doing this? I remember doing this. I hated maths in school. I can't believe that I'm doing a series of videos that involve teaching people how to do mathematical addition, because it's not my forte. So I check these about 5 million times before I come on camera, because I'm convinced that I'm going to get it wrong. And even in the middle of doing it, I think this can't be right. Anyway, so what I've done is I've added 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 6 is 16, and so I've written 6 there, and look, I've carried the 1. There's a little 1 there. Oh, this takes me back. So now we've got 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. And then because there's nothing there, that's just 9, that's 9, and that's 1. So the answer is 1966. Not the year 1966, but the result, 1966. And then using Pythagorean reduction, 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 6, the result we actually get to is 22. So we are at 22 or less for Dolly Parton. So that tells me that I am already in the major arcana. So here's how it works. That means that the Fool is her personality card, because in this method, the first card that you reach in the major arcana through this process is your personality card. If it's a double digit, and in Dolly's case it is, you add those two numbers together in the same method, so it's 2 plus 2, and that gives you 4, which is the Emperor. That tells me that the Emperor is Dolly Parton's soul card. Now, because in this constellation there's another card that adds up to adds up to 4 if you use Pythagorean reduction, and that's 13, 1 plus 3, which would give you 4. That means that Death, 13, is Dolly's hidden card, her shadow card, her teacher card. So that gives you the 3 cards. Now, you might be somebody who ends up with 2 teacher cards. So if, for example, you do this calculation and you landed straight on 4 without hitting any of the other numbers in the major arcana first, if you went straight to 4, then 4 would be your personality card. And because you can't reduce it any further, it would also be your soul card. And then your shadow card become Death and the Fool. Or you might be like me, and my result, if I use this method, is I land straight on 7. I'm a chariot in this method. I land straight on 7, which means that my personality card is 7. Because I can't reduce 7 anymore, my soul card is also 7. And my shadow card, my teacher card, my hidden card is the Tower. Now, in this method, you also use the minor arcana, so that once you've figured out what your root number is, then you're also related to those numbers in the minor arcana. So in my case, I'm related to the 7s in the minor arcana, and the 7s in the minor arcana represent my challenges and opportunities. So that is the broad method. Let me just think if there's anything else I need to tell you. Oh, the other thing to say to you is that I have embellished this method somewhat and found it to be kind of interesting, but you don't need to do this at all. But if you're interested and you want to, you can add a couple of numbers into the sum, and those are your time of birth. If you know it, if it's on your birth certificate and you know it because it's written down. Now, I know that your birth certificate number might not be 100% accurate, but the way that this works, if you want to go into the whole kind of numerological philosophy, if you like, there are some who would argue that what's important isn't the exact time, but it's what's recorded, and that there's significance in that, in the same way that your name is recorded on your birth certificate. An example, for example, is that Oprah Winfrey, as I understand it, was actually meant to be called Orpah Winfrey, because Orpah is the name of a character in the Bible, and so she was christened Orpah, or was to be christened Orpah, but her father went to the register office to record her birth, and he misspelled her name and wrote O-P-R-A-H instead of O-R-P-A-H. And so she was henceforth known as Oprah. Now, probably you would agree, whatever your opinion of Oprah Winfrey, whether you like her or not, or whatever, you know that she's a significant figure in popular culture. And I think you probably agree that she is, through and through, in public consciousness, Oprah Winfrey. So what's written on your birth certificate is important in this philosophy. So you find your birth time if it's on your birth certificate. If you don't have a birth certificate and you don't know it, you ask. And if there's an accurate time, you might be able to add this in. And the way that I do it is simply to write it in the 24-hour clock and add it to the sum as hours and minutes. So then you have, so in my case, I was born at 1:25 p.m. So I write 13 there for 1 in the 24-hour clock at p.m. And so 13 plus 25, 25. And then I add it in. Now if I do that, I get a different result. I come out then as a hermit. I go straight to 9 rather than 7. So the hermit becomes my personality card and the moon becomes my shadow teacher card. And why that's interesting for me is that I have discovered in my case that certainly whilst I resonate with the, where have I gone? Whilst I resonate with the chariot and the tower for a number of reasons in terms of my outward life, if you like, in terms of my inner life, I see real connotations with the hermit moon. So the way I tend to think of it now is that you don't lose your original card if you just use the day and month method. And if you add the hours in, then that just pinpoints things and refines things. So I think of myself as being hermit moon within the umbrella of the chariot tower, if that makes sense. But as I say, you don't need to add in your birth time at all. So that's how to do it using the Mary K. Greer method. So now let's have a look at a spread to illuminate your personality, soul, and shadow cards. Okay, so let's have a look at a spread option for personality and shadow cards. And what I have got here is my personality and my shadow card. Now in my case, my personality and shadow are the same, and it's the chariot. I'll use the one without the birth times in it for now. So I'm going to pop the chariot there. If you had two different cards, obviously you could put one there and one there. And my shadow card is the tower, so I'm going to put that there. So the way that I would do this in your spread is I would lay out your cards, your personality, soul and shadow cards, and then you decide which of the following two card, let me just turn this light down so you can see them, two card spreads you would use to illuminate those cards. And I've just written down some options here. I'm suggesting a 2-card spread. You could do a 3-card draw or even a 1-card draw. But the idea being that you're asking what else you need to know about your personality, soul and shadow cards. And you could do this by saying, what do I need to do more of and what do I need to do less of in order to draw out the best qualities of my personality or to deal with the challenges of the shadow. You could do, where is the resource within this this result and what is the limitation? So what's the resource that the chariot gives me as a personality, but also what limitation does it give me? Then you might want to add in a 3rd card for that one around what is the solution to resolving that tension. And again, within the tower, inherent in the idea of shadow is something that's hidden from us, something that might be a bit of a challenge or a teacher card. And if you get a card that is traditionally seen to be a bit negative or scary, like the tower, then you might want to know, okay then, so what is the resource that this is giving me? It looks slightly frightening. So what's the resource that I'm getting from this? And also what's the limitation that I get from this, and what's the solution? Incidentally, just for those of you who do have Tower as your shadow card, one of the things I would just say to remind you is that the Tower, yes, it can be scary and it can be about this kind of destructive force, but I also think of the Tower as being about destructuring and restructuring. Now, it does usually mean in a very profound, sometimes sudden, certainly fundamental way. It's not like a little tweak to things. It is a big, profound kind of energy. But it can be about necessary destructuring and restructuring. So it doesn't have to be scary, but it's worth paying attention to it. The other thing you could do is, of course, within each of these, what's the situation that is being brought to my attention? What's the challenge of that situation? That, incidentally, is of course, the heart of the Celtic cross, the first card and then the card that crosses it, situation and challenge. Where's the blockage in relation to me bringing out the quality, say, of the chariot or the lessons of the Tower, and what's the solution to that? What's helping me? What's holding me back? What do I need to know about this now? And what do I need to know about it later? So those are the various 2-card card draws you could do. And I would suggest you use the same deck as you've drawn the cards from. You could use a different deck, which would mean that they might come up again, but I just think that that probably could cause more confusion. If you do, for example, a 2-card draw on the tower and it comes out Chariot Tower, I think probably in my case I would think, and be a little bit confused. So I use the same deck, and this is my modified Giant Rider-Waite, which is very thick because it's got little magnetic strips on the back, which is why I can stick them to the board. And I've coloured and edged them in relation to their elemental suits. So obviously I'm not going to shuffle these on camera, because if I did, they'd go all over the place. But you know, I would just say, okay, I'll shuffle and then draw 2 cards for each of these, the tower, you know, the personality, shadow and soul, and then I would interpret them. And either you could interpret them as a 2-card draw, as I'm doing there, or you could incorporate these cards. You could actually read them as a 3-card draw, or again, you could do, instead of a 2-card draw, you could do a 3-card draw, just to eliminate things. Or if you want to be really simple about it and straightforward, you could do a 1-card draw for each. You could say, all right then, Chariot, what else do I need to know? Okay then, Tower, what else do I need to know? Okay, I might need to ponder this. So I'll leave you with that for this method, and now we'll go on to the easier, slightly easier, Tarot School method, along with a spread that goes with that. Okay, so now we're going to look at the slightly simpler method of the Tarot School, and the formula for this is fairly straightforward. You write the sum as follows: your month, the day of birth, the first part of the year. I've put 19 there. I know that some of you watching this, many of you watching this, will have been born in 20 something, but just to show the sum, I put 19 there. But if you were born in 2003, then you would put 20 there, obviously. And then 03 there. So month, day, first part of the year, second part of the year. That will give you a result that's either 2 or 3 digits. If it's 2 digits, using Pythagorean reduction, you use those 2 digits, A plus B. If it's 3 digits, you treat the first 2 digits in the 3-digit number as one single unit. So you would do the sum as AB plus C. If that came out as 123, for example, you would do 12 plus 3, which would give you 15. And in this case, you go for a number that's 21 or less, the reason being that the Fool doesn't feature in the birth card pairs in this method. The Fool is seen to be the journeyer on the path. So again, I'll use Dolly Parton's birth date as an example. So she was born in January the 19th, 1946. So we write it out as a sum. If you add them up, you get the result 85. It's a 2-digit number, so you simply add 8 plus 5, that gives you 13. So she is number 13, which moves to number 4, so her pair is Death Emperor. Now you'll remember in the previous method that I showed you, the Mary Kay Greer method, Dolly comes out as someone who is in the constellation of the Emperor. So, but she also has the hidden card. So she's got the Fool in there, she's got Death in there, she's got the Emperor in there, and she's got the Minor Arcana 4s in there as well. In this method, she just gets a pair. And the way that that sounded rude. I did not mean that to sound rude. That was not planned. I promise you. I promise you that was not planned. So, Dolly Parton has got a pair in this method, and her pair are the Death and Emperor. Now, the way that the tarot, I should just show you before I go into that. I'm a bit flustered now because I made that unintentional pair joke. For most of the results that you get, once you get to number 21 or less, you will get a pair straight away. So you'll get 21 going to 3, and that's World Empress, 20 going to 2, that's Judgment High Priestess. If you get 19 though as your result, as you know from the previous method, that reduces then to 10. 9 plus 1 is 10, but 10 can reduce further. 0 plus 1 is 1. So this person had a tarot card, birth card, trio, not pair. Sun, Wheel, Magician. If they had gone straight to 10 in their calculation and hadn't had 19, they would just be Wheel Magician. So it's important to know in this method there is a difference. You can be a Wheel Magician or you can be a Sun Wheel Magician, and that gives you different elements to deal with. The other thing to be aware of is that some cards appear more than once. So you can be a World Empress because 21 reduces to 3, or you can be a Hanged Man Empress, 12 reduces to 3. You can be a Justice High Priestess because 11 reduces to 2, but you can also be a Judgment High Priestess because 20 reduces to 2. So in this method, it's important to know exactly what pair you're dealing with. And the way that the Tarot School describes it, or I've certainly heard Wald Amberstone describe it, is that these pairs operate a bit like a portal through which you are able to travel in your life, and you have got the influence of both of the cards acting on you at all times. And you will either be pulled in the direction of one or the other, or you will achieve a state of equilibrium and balance. And so the spread that I want to show you is about exactly that. It's about how to achieve this state of equilibrium and balance. Okay, so here we are with a couple of options for a spread. And I think of this, because we're talking about in the tarot card pairs, or trio in one case, we're thinking of portals through which we're walking through, as Wald Amberstone described it as. What we need is, or poles that we're walking through, that's another way of looking at it. What we need is something that balances or bridges the two. So I think of this as a balance or bridge spread, and depending on what you're feeling about your tarot card pairs will depend on how you contextualize it. So let's just use as an example, if you were a wheel magician, or indeed if you were a sun wheel magician, so let's put the sun up there as a kind of indication. So now you've got the context within which you're working, and what I recommend here is 1 or 2 or 3 cards that you use as a reading that tells you how you're going to balance or bridge these different energies, if you like. Now you could do a past, present, future, traditional 3-card spread, a situation, obstacle, advice, context, focus, release, what you need to think, what you need to feel, what you need to do, or what you do think, what you do feel, and what you do currently, what you need to start, what you need to stop, what you need to start, what you need to continue, what do you need to know from a mind perspective, body perspective, and spirit perspective. And there are various different iterations of this, and it's entirely up to you how you do it. Again, I'd recommend that you use the same deck that you're using for this, so that these cards are out of the picture because they're already there, and then you simply draw your cards and you stick them up in relation to whatever it is you're looking at in here. And you can either read the cards simply as a reading in themselves, those cards the new cards you've put down, or you can include these cards in the reading and see what that tells you. And obviously there are lots and lots of different iterations of this spread and the previous one that I showed you. So that is how to do tarot card spreads to illuminate either your tarot constellation using the Mary K. Greer method, or your birth card pairs using the Tarot School method. So your homework from this video, guess what, is to do your birth card spread. And you can either use one of the versions that I've shown you today, or you can make up your own. But what I'd like you to do, if you are willing, is to if you make videos, please do a video response. And if you're willing to, why not do a reading on your video of your birth cards and share it with us? That would be amazing. The other thing that you could do is, if you don't do videos, then you can comment below and you can tell us what the readings tell you about your birth card pairs and whether they illuminate them or not. If you are on Facebook and you are part of the Tarot to the Nines Facebook group, you can post your readings in there. I'd love to see them. And you know, even if you're not a member of Facebook, if you haven't already joined, you can join the Tarot to the Nines Facebook group and follow along there. But if you want to, then you can just stick with us here, and that will be absolutely fine. Excuse me. And now that my voice is becoming a bit hoarse, I'm going to take a break from video making and do something else, and I'll be back very soon with the Tarot 5s. Take care everyone, see you soon.